happen? What if this happens again? And I love to offer couples just another paradigm of what if it's all okay? Mm-hmm. What if we grow and we're extraordinary from this? Mm-hmm. What if we create something even more beautiful than we ever had? Offer up some better, bigger possibility that is connecting and building that open transparency rather than continuing to go back. Welcome to the Relationship Psychologist podcast, a place where we dive deep into all things relationships. I'm Dana Mullen.
And I'm Alicia Hinger, and we are soul sisters, besties, and psychologists who are on a mission to change the culture of relationships.
Each week, we will discuss our expertise in the field of psychology, interview experts, spiritual leaders, and real people. Our goal in every episode is to give our listeners tools to implement in their lives today.
This podcast is not therapy, nor should it be a substitute for therapy, but instead we're here to motivate, support, and guide your conscious journey in this life.
The best way to support our podcast is to subscribe and give it a 5-star review.
Thanks so much for joining. Let's dive in.
Welcome back.
We're still in the same office.
We are.
Thanks, John, for letting us borrow your office.
Yeah.
Sessions.
Yeah. It's a nice little space.
It's really nice, actually. It smells good in here.
It smells really good in here. Yeah, we like it. Smell is important.
It smells important. Okay, massive topic. We talked about this a little bit last podcast, but this is a big topic that's so important. I love the quote that you have here.
Yeah, trust. So we're talking about trust today, and I'm actually reading this quote because I think it like defines it so good. Trust is the most underestimated factor that can create or destroy everything within a few seconds.
Most underrated factor. We all talk about trust. It's a big deal.
Yeah.
But if you just pause and go, wow, because it can be ripped apart. It takes so long. It's like so much work to build the foundation of trust.
Yeah.
And then in 1 second, boom, that whole foundation has a hole. And now your boat's sinking.
Yeah.
So fast.
Yeah. Trust is part of safety and security. So since it's the foundation, when we lose trust, we feel, and anybody who's been in any kind of relationship where trust has been broken, you know that feeling of being like I don't feel like, I don't know where I am. I don't know how to stand anymore. Nothing feels right. Like everything feels like everything has changed around me and I don't even know where to lean in. I just feel like I want to like protect. It changes everything. Relationship.
Well, you're talking about body stuff. It changes like your whole nervous system is now in fight or flight and in threat response. And then my worldview, what I thought was this is something different. So now I don't know how to, so I love that it affects, what she says, it affects all areas of our life. So not just this relationship that I'm in with you, that you breached our trust, but now I'm like looking at the entire world difference.
Yes.
It's massive.
Every day of the year, it affects everything.
Every day.
Yeah. It affects your personal relationships, your work relationships, how you relate to people and maybe your church.
Yeah. Which makes sense. If you think about a breach of trust, like in a primary relationship, this thing happened, you feel like you got blinded somehow. And now you're like, well, where else is that happening?
Yeah.
Like, where else can I not trust in my environment? So now I'm looking at every person, every event, every circumstance, everywhere in the world, right? Goes to kind of what's happening today. You know, how much trust has been breached over the past few years. We came out of some really tough times.
Yeah.
And there's still no real clarity. And so,
it is. And I was just even thinking, Alicia, when you were just saying that, even just going back to like, say, like young love, like teenagers, when they break up, you know, that like, oh, I trusted you and now you broke up with me. I mean, that even can feel like a breach of trust, right? Like you decided to end our relationship and now I'm trying to figure out who do I trust and where can I land and where is a safe place. So, I mean, trust it's so massive.
It's massive. You know, on the alternative side, thinking about young love, if you are the person ending the relationship or mutually ending the relationship. So let's just say you're in the early relationship and you're seeing some signs, some red flags and some signs, and then you end the relationship, which is hard to do, right? Because you have all these feelings and emotions and all, but you end it. That actually is going to build some self-trust. That I stood by or you're dating, right? Even if you're an adult now and you're fast forward and you're, you know, in your adult life and you're dating, you're out of a divorce, going to date again or whatever, out of a long-term relationship, going to date again. And you're every time you're in a relationship now where you're like, this doesn't feel aligned, something doesn't feel, and you trust your guts, you're building self-trust.
Yeah.
So that's where it starts, right?
It does. It does. It definitely starts with that self-trust. And I mean, when when there is a breach in even self-trust, right? Like, it's like, now I doubt myself.
Yeah.
Like,
that's worse.
Yeah. What do I stand for? And how do I kind of reorient myself back to, I need to come back to myself for a minute here and just go, where do I feel safe and secure? Where do I align? Where's my personal integrity? Where did I abandon
all that stuff?
Yeah.
And where did I abandon all those things you just said?
Yes.
Yeah. So it starts with self. So the idea of trust starts with self and knowing what you just said, integrity, values, where do I align, my principles, what's important to me, and what do I stand for in those arenas? And do I actually stand for those? Like, do I actually take action to stand for those things in my life today? Building self. And again, think about how many times we talked about this in another podcast of like, we spend, even as a kid, and this is a default model sometimes. I don't stand for those things. When I tried to as a kid, I was neglected or shamed or rejected or whatever. So now I don't stand for those things. And I instead self-abandon and stand for something that's not truly me. I'm not going to have a sense of trust.
No. And then we gravitate towards any sense of belonging, right? Like, if you think of anybody who's been through some traumatic situations, and let's just go to teenagers first, like, maybe they don't come from a safe and secure kind of trusting family. They will find somewhere where they have a sense of belonging. Yeah. Right. A gang. Well, I mean, it's based on some kind of trust, but the trust is that you have to follow these agreements, that this is what we do. We do these things, and then we'll trust you. Yeah.
That's any small friendship circle or gang.
Yeah.
They're not all bad, but they could be. The religion could be based on, we agree that these things that are maybe illegal or whatever, or goes against, but I will pick belonging over myself. So as we're discussing this trusting and your self-abandoning and not trusting self, it's not always on purpose. It's not because you chose it. It's a default model of, I chose to fit in. I chose to belong at the expense of self. And we all do it at some points in our life.
We do. And Alicia, you said this in another podcast. And when we talked about the fact that we will not pick authenticity, we will not pick ourselves before attachment. So I will pick attaching to a group that disaligns with what's good for me, because that sense of belonging and that attachment is more important for survival than myself. And so I feel like we're kind of offering up with this topic about trust is, let's start back with self-trust. Yeah. Let's start back with your own confidence in, what are my personal standards? Yeah. What are my personal standards? What are my personal values? What are my personal goals?
Principles.
And principles. Yeah. And how do I follow through with those? Yeah. Because if I don't follow through with any of those, then I'm not believable and I'm not credible to the world or the self.
Exactly. So if I say, I stand for, I will only use red pens in my dialogue or something, whatever, something ridiculous, right? Yeah. And then you're using a blue pen, you're like, but I also then I'm not being truthful. I'm lying to myself. Yeah. And kind of, what's worse than that? Like, really, what's more painful than that? I'm lying to myself. And so if I don't trust myself, I continually lie to myself, which we do sometimes. Then I'm like, I'm going to go in the world and behave things. But my inner parts are like, well, we don't trust you because we're already misaligned here. We don't. So now, how can I rely on my gut instincts and my parts of myself to inform me of when I can trust others? My whole masterclass is built on this. Like that, I spent 8 modules, like 18 videos I created to understand the roots of attachment, the roots of self, your defense systems, your parts, the stories you tell yourself, your inner critics, all the belief systems, all the stuff, to really understand where that goes wrong and how to rebuild that sense of self. So it's a massive topic that we need to dive into.
But I mean, something that you can check out, where you can go to, your Instagram page or your website and get that masterclass. If you want to dive much more into how do I find and create that vision of this self, of who I am and what I'm trying to create.
Yeah, exactly. And unpacking what happened, like what went sideways in my history that caused me self-abandon. Okay, so let's bring this to after self, it's relationship, right?
And let's actually back up for 1 second for Alicia. I think there's a couple more things I want to say about the self-trust. I really think that people have to kind of evaluate, like, where are my priorities in my relationship with myself? Like, what's my priority? What are my biggest values? Because for some people, they'll say, you and I would probably say relationships, but for some people, they would say, they would say, status is actually really important to me because I felt like I was nobody my whole life and I want to feel like somebody. Some people might say finances. I want to be really wealthy because I was so poor that there is nothing more important to me now than finances. Some people might say religion. I'm so devoted to my religion. Nothing is more important than that. So whatever it is, it's fine. You can think of it. I think of like the pyramid, like what's at the top, what's the most important, and then kind of go down from there.
That's to assess that for yourself. What's most important for you? And again, no judgment. Like just lean back and go, actually, I just spent 20 years in jail. Maybe it's freedom. Right. Or it doesn't matter what it is, but really being honest with yourself of like, I actually align with that more. So I'm not going to pretend to align with other things that aren't my truth anymore. I'm going to own my stuff. Own my shit. If I want to stand for finances, I want Lamborghinis. Like that's fine. Totally own that. That's what you want to stand for. That's okay. I'd rather you own that and be honest with that with your partner, with your life, because then I can trust you.
Exactly. And I love this kind of visual, like the heart of trust is transparency. So even transparency with yourself, like just own it. Like that's what you love. That's what you love.
So here, my brain just put a crazy example.
Cool.
Because I mean analogies. I'm like, okay, so Hitler comes in the room right now. Right?
He's
great.
Okay. Hi. Nice to meet you.
The ghost of Hitler, whatever. Right? We could trust. Do we think he's a nice guy? I've never met the guy. I'm going to assume he's a bad dude based on, history. It's not good stuff. Right? But I could trust that his idea of, killing people that don't align with what he thinks is the perfect race. I can trust that that's probably still going to be his belief system. So I can trust people even that I don't agree with.
Yes.
I can trust that that's who they are. They've shown me who they are. I believe that's who they are. Okay. So trust isn't about that I agree with you. That's not what trust is. Trust is I see who you are in the world. And Maya Angelou said that when someone shows you who they are, believe them.
Yes.
That's a great line.
It is a really great line. And we don't have, like Alepa, you just said that we don't have to align with you to trust you. I mean, you can think even of bigger, like the government, political parties, medical system. Like there's lots of different things where you're like, I don't have to align with you, but I do trust because you're telling me this is what I'm standing for, whether you believe them or not. But if they're being open and transparent and they're standing for it and they're following through with it, then it's believable.
Yes, exactly. So that where it becomes an issue is when they say this and then change your mind and stand for something when it's not transparent or it's not consistent.
Selective integrity.
Then I don't trust. So the point of that is I can trust someone even though I don't agree with. Someone that has a different moral, different values, different religion, different whatever, but I can trust them because I can go, they're authentic. They stand for that. They have principles for that. They align and their behavior lines up consistently with that thing. That's what they believe in. I can trust that that's who they are. Awesome.
And when you're, if we're kind of looking at it in the sense of maybe I'm trying to build trust back. And I know the second piece we're going to talk about is relationships, but even if you're just to think of, maybe I self-abandoned. Maybe I really haven't been standing for what I believe in. Like maybe I believe in health and wellness, but actually don't take good care of my health and wellness. Okay. So now I need to reevaluate. How can I start to build some integrity and some intent around that? Like, what does that actually look like? So I can measure it and be like, I'm going to set out that I'm going to start to do these things and I'm going to actually reevaluate every week. So I build that self-confidence in myself of like, see, I can do it. Start small. Don't put all of them because the research shows 8% of people actually stand for their New Year's resolutions, for instance.
We say it.
Because we put way too many on there, usually, or it's too big.
Or 1,000 other excuses. Okay, so can we challenge our audience with that? Like I love what you just said. Let's challenge each other and the audience with, let's make trust a verb. Not a verb, an adjective, an action word. What's an action word? Let's make trust an action word. So it's something that you're going to put into, it's not just something you say, that you give lip service to or you think about. Trust is something I'm going to put into action. I'm going to, like what Dana said, I'm going to look at what's important to me, the top of my triangle. What do I really align with? What do I stand for? And I'm actually going to do that. I'm going to put it into action.
How am I going to live according to that every day or this week or whatever it is? And let's measure it. Let's actually go back and go, how well did I do this week? Did I actually do that? That's going to build that confidence and that integrity and that self-assurance of like, I can do this. My word is gold.
Huge. So it can build self-trust and it's going to build trust with those around you that you do what you say. So for health, that's your example. Then that's a great example. I stand for health. I haven't been doing that actually. So I haven't really been standing for health at all, but if I'm going to stand for health, what can I do today to stand for health and take baby steps towards that thing? So let's make trust an action word.
It is. Cool. It's actionable. It's tangible. It's creatable. And it really is, because trust is, it's not invisible. It's very actionable.
It's fruit from the tree.
Exactly.
It literally grows. And then in others, when they say, trust me, I'm like, I'm watching. Yeah. I'm paying attention and I'm watching to what you do, not just what you say. Actually, very little to what you say, truthfully. Well, your words are what? What do we decide? 7%.
Yes.
I'll give 7% credit to your words. I'm going to give 93% credit to what you do.
Yes. And how you deliver it. Yeah. I mean, people always say that, right? It's not what I say, it's what I do.
And then we say to our kids, don't do what I do what I say. No. Yeah. It's not true. Okay. So make it actionable. Okay. Anything else you want to say about self-trust?
I think that's all that I want to say about self-trust. I know it's a big one, but I think it's a good thing for people to just kind of reflect on how well do I trust myself?
Yeah.
How well am I living in alignment with what are my values and what are my intentions and what are my goals? How well am I doing? It's a really good inventory.
And just to add to that, not based on what I think I should, my should jail word, right? Not what I should be doing because I was told or it was, that it actually aligns with me. Yeah. So start to release the pressure of having to live by the shoulds of others. You're an adult now. You choose what actually aligns with your authentic self now. You choose your values now.
Even if you're not an adult and you're a teenager, also still do that. What do I stand for? What do I really want? Maybe my parents have said, I can't do that. Or my friends are like, you're not good enough to do that. What do I really want?
Yeah. And then do my behaviors match that?
Exactly.
Integrity.
Yes.
Okay, moving to relationships now. So how do we build trust? And again, this is that foundation we've discussed in more than one podcast now of the safety, secure system of the couple bubble. It's the foundation of trust that grows the relationship over time and space. So we build it through time and space. It's a gift. We build an actionable gift through time and space.
Yes. Yeah, we're building trust. And really the goal is building it and not destroying it. Because the minute it's destroyed, it's like, I just kind of visualize instantly, like when they implode a building and it's like, whoosh, and it all falls apart. Like it does. It's not one little piece that falls apart. You don't go, oh, now I just don't trust you with money because you made a financial error.
Right.
Actually, I don't know. I don't trust you in a lot of things. I don't know. I don't
feel safe with you anymore.
Yeah. And so when I ask couples to do this, I'll say, I want you to rate how much trust you have with each other. And they'll always be
always want to break it down. Me too.
Totally.
Well, I trust someone here. I trust them here, but not over here. And I'm like, and I get that. I get why they want to do that. I think, oh, he's a great dad or she's a great mom or whatever. And I trust them with my kids. That's great. But this thing that imploded affects that. It affects, would you trust them teaching kids about finances? Well, no, not that.
Yeah. So then, and if that is the case, if you do kind of align with that and you're like, well, that's me. I actually kind of think that I would break down my relationship as to trusting different things, which is okay.
Yeah.
Then take those hot topics of things where you're like, on a scale of 1 to 10, if 10 is 100% trust, say for finances, I only trust a 3. Well, now that's something to go back to in your relationship. How do we build trust around our finances? Because I notice for me, I feel like I'm a 3. You might feel differently.
Yeah.
So how do we start to build that trust together? We need actionable steps to be on the same page to build that trust.
Yeah. And there's the obvious things, if there's a financial breach, if someone was gambling your money or embezzling your money or hiding your money or whatever, that'd be a breach of the bubble of the financial agreements. And then you breached it, or maybe there was an affair and you breached our safety secure system. We agreed to monogamy and you chose not to, or there's 1,000 things that can breach the trust system. So those are kind of the obvious ones. So, so when it's breached, when the building explodes, to take a really honest look and go, the building exploded. And I think there's some foundational, again, it's specific to the couple. So this is not a general one size fits all for sure. Like when couples come into our offices and there's a breach of trust of something, we spend a lot of time discussing the what's, the hows, the history, the attachment systems, the nonverbals, the nervous systems. Like we're doing all the assessing. So we're going to give you again the Cole's notes of some of the generals here. This is not to say one size fits all, because when someone says, well, how do I build my trust? I'm like, well, that depends on so many factors.
Yeah.
I can't just give you a blanket answer.
No. And for a lot of people, when there is a breach of trust, this is a good time to go see a couple therapist.
Yeah.
If it's a couple thing, if it's a breach within your family of origin, it might be individual therapy to try and figure out how do I create new boundaries.
Therapy or
family.
Yeah. So here's some things you could think about while you're deciding if you want to go and do that work. But I think one of the first things that you just think about, that first thing I think of what comes to my mind is when I think about a breach in the relationship. So, a couple, let's say. So if there's a breach in the relationship, one of the first things I'm assessing them with my couple too is, and I'm asking them to assess, is this a relationship breach? Mm-hmm. Which is hard. And again, we're not pointing fingers, but I'm asking the ship questions, right? So because why is another trauma. Well, why did it happen? Carrying the why. If I'm the person, if I'm the victim, quote unquote, of, feeling that way, why did it happen? So I'm assessing that stuff. And I'm looking at, there's all of these things. This boat was sinking for a long time, and doesn't excuse the person's behavior that had the affair or did the gambling or did the addiction or whatever they did. It doesn't excuse the behavior, but it's the understanding the why, that we both weren't fixing this ship that's been sinking for a long. It's a relationship issue.
Yeah.
Or is it the person I'm with, like you talked about earlier, doesn't have that integrity? They say they stand for something and they do the opposite. They say they stand for these things over and over and over again, but yet their behavior shows very different. That's a different discussion.
Oh, yes.
So knowing the person you're with, knowing self. If it could be you could be the one doing the breaching and be like, well, I say I stand for monogamy, but I keep having affairs. Well, then maybe you don't stand for monogamy.
Yeah.
That's your truth.
Let's reevaluate it. And I know for us, for when couples come in, and there is whatever the trust issue is, first off, I think for us, we really want the commitment of like, are you wanting to make this work?
Yes. Yeah. For sure. That'd be second piece. I'd say, is it a relationship issue or a personal issue? So I want to know that first, because if it's a person issue, I can't change that. And nor do I want to. No. I want to expose truth. I want this to be truth in the office. So someone comes in and it's, let's say someone has let's do finances. That's maybe a different one. Let's say someone just has an idea about finances that they just don't care about them. They're happy to live off the land, farming, whatever. And, and this person wants to run a business and have a picket white fence in the city or whatever. And they keep spending all the money. Yeah. Or they don't make any money or whatever. So financial, that's just who they are. And so I look at the person, but can you accept that? Because you made an agreement without looking at who your person really is. For monogamy or religion or kids or whatever all those things are. There's 1,000 things here to put into that equation. But
and then maybe offering up to the other person, maybe this is who you are, but is there any willingness to change for the relationship? And maybe there's not. Maybe there's certain wiring where it's like, I can't change that. Finances, you probably could change, but maybe wiring around my
capacity.
Well, it could be. I mean, we're talking about big things, right? That you and I notice in our office, but just for people to kind of go, okay, where is my movement here? Like, this is who I am and this is what I stand for. But am I willing to negotiate something that creates a win-win to build trust in our relationship? And if I'm not willing, maybe that's a deal breaker.
Exactly.
But let's see into the other person. Let's validate them. Let's take our own accountability, but let's make a commitment. I really want to try and work through this with you. Like I'm really committed to try and work through this. And then if it doesn't work, then we'll go our separate ways. But let's have a commitment that we really want to dive into.
And is it something that we can fix? Is it something that we can actually attend to negotiate? So if it's a financial thing, a monogamous thing or whatever, but if it's a capacity thing, if you're like, that you never tune into me, you just miss my cues and you just have a deficit there. You can't read faces. Or you have a deficit there if you just lack empathy, or there's a deficit there that you're not doing it on purpose. You actually just have that will point that out to our couple sometimes.
Oh yeah.
This is who this person is. It's not because they're rude or because they don't, she just has a deficit. She can't read your face.
Yeah.
That's a true thing that happens sometimes. And you're like, okay, so quit asking for that.
Yeah. And we can use some very clear examples of that. Let's say somebody's in a wheelchair and they're paraplegic.
Yes.
And they're like, I really want to go running with you. It's not happening.
Yeah, it's not happening.
That's not happening. That there's a visual deficit. You can see that, right? And I know you say, I'd steal this from you. You know exactly what I'm going to say already. But when you'll say, he's a dog and you're a cat and you want him to meow, he can't meow. He doesn't have capacity.
Yeah.
And this could look like, and we've worked with lots of people like this, where they come from, an example would be, they come from a family background where emotions were void. There was no emotional expression at all. There was no touch. There was no facial looking. There was no validating. Very, very little. So
they're very top down. They're very intellectual.
And they're very internal. They're like, this is kind of my little bubble. I don't do the bubble. I do the individual bubble. And so does this person have capacity to change? Not much.
But they're lovely and they're kind and they want to, right?
We love these people.
We love them. So they can do all kinds of different things, but you're like, but they miss these cues. I'm like, yes. And they're going to miss them forever. So let's do this differently, but quit asking what they can't. Quit asking your cat to bark or your dog to purr. Right. I use those examples because I have dogs and cats in my office, literally. So
exactly. And so, I mean, as you're trying to build trust back, you have to kind of really evaluate where is capacity, where do we need to outsource maybe, whether that's with a therapist or I'll outsource some of my emotional stuff with somebody else. But there's still a commitment that we're on board to do this together and to support this.
So I would say that. So my first thought is like, is it relationship? Is it capacity? Is it individual? Right? We have to tease it out first. And then are you both in? Because to repair a breach, requires both of you. You have to both be 100% into preparing it.
Yeah.
Not just, I'm not going to sit back and be like, you messed up, so you need to repair everything. I'm going to sit over here, which is kind of what people want to do because they're hurt.
Yeah.
Right. So you need to move forward and like help support and make space for my pain, whatever, for sure.
Yeah.
But I got to be willing to be in it with you and receive it. I got to be in it with you and willing to watch the changes and the growth and the repairs and the
and some people aren't ready yet.
Not ready.
And the other, whoever, if there is somebody in the relationship that did some kind of breach, why there is a trust issue, taking full accountability and full responsibility with no excuses, explanations, or intentions.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say that again. No excuses, explanations, or intent.
Yeah.
Of course, there is reasons internally. Stop saying it because that's not going to make the other person feel seen and safe and secure with you. They're going to feel like, oh, wow, so it's about you again.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's put it back to you again because it's all about your shortcomings in life.
Yeah. There'll be a space and time to understand and evaluate the whys. But initially, it's got to be a space of, I'm so sorry. And, again, if we're playing the role of like, you breached it and I'm the one being blindsided, for example, right? I want to understand the whys. I need to ask all those questions again. So what were you thinking? Like, was I in the equation? Did you think about our kids and our life and our finance? Did you think about, was I not in the equation at all? Like, what was happening for you in that space? And have an honest, authentic, accountable dialogue about those things where there's no, I didn't think about you at all. Oh, that's a discussion to have. Or I did think about you and didn't care. Yeah. Or I didn't, I felt massive guilt. I did it anyways. Those are all different, experiences.
It's full open transparency, which again is the heart of trust, building trust. And you have to tell the whole story as much as you can from the beginning to the end.
Yeah.
I always tell couples too, like, whatever it is, it's good to put a bit of a time frame. You can decide what your time frame is on how long we're going to talk about this story. I don't have a right or a wrong. I really don't take that on. But let's just say it's 3 weeks. So you have 3 weeks to talk about this incident, ask any question that you want. And then we have to close that container because if we keep living in that container, we're living in the past and we're living in trauma. And if you keep driving, looking in the rearview mirror, you're going to drive backwards.
Absolutely.
Or drive backwards.
Yeah. So I think it's really important, and which is hard work. But if you're both in, it means we're both committed to the work of making this a trusting, safe, secure relationship again. So we're both in it. So that means if I'm the perceived victim in the situation or whatever that looks like, whatever we're doing use there, then I'm in the space. I may be pissed off. I'm allowed to have all the feelings like, you put me here, I'm pissed off, whatever, but I'm also agreeing to do the work. So at some point I'm going to go, okay, we've agreed, we've done the repair, we're doing this stuff to be like, I'm going to let that ship now, that shark that bit us, I'm going to let that shark release it because I don't want to keep it in our system. It's not going to serve us anymore. That's hard. That's a hard ask, but it's a true ask. It's a true ask.
It is really true.
It's a true.
And if you can, I mean, if you're the person that's been betrayed in trust, if you have capacity to take any accountability, that's a really massive. Maybe they're not ready yet. So I'm not saying that you have to yet, but when you're ready to be able to say, I can acknowledge some of my role in this, like I was really focused on my business and preoccupied with my family and my own self-development that I didn't actually tend to our relationship. I'm not making excuses for your behavior.
Yeah.
I'm just acknowledging my role on the ship that we weren't working together. And when you get that bid for repair from your partner, you take it and you go, thanks for acknowledging that. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Without then more conversation. Yeah, you're right. You do those things. And that did really hurt our relationship. Stay concise.
Yeah.
People ramble too much. And the more that you talk, the more threat is, our brain is always scanning for threat.
Always.
So honestly, just concise and say less words and then just sit and let that land. I always think of like throwing a rock in the water and just letting the ripples. I'm going to take accountability. I'm really sorry. And now just let that land.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a lot to unpack there. I'm just thinking of a couple as you're talking, a beautiful couple that I adore. There was no affair. And so their story was, so she came in, of course, he had an affair on her, and she came in obviously in trauma reaction, right? So we did some work on all the body stuff. But one of the things I said in one of the sessions was we'd done some work and done some repair, and he was all in it. He did all the right stuff. He was very bought in. He'd read all Stan's books and he'd read some affair stuff. And he's like, I'm sorry. And I thought of you, and here's what happened. Like, he was very open to do the work, and this is years ago. They're a long-term master couple now. They're great. But one of the things I said in the session, I don't know how I said it, but it was like a bomb went off for her, like an aha moment that was painful, but it shifted her. Where she kept saying, but you abandoned me. Like, we had an agreement and you abandoned me. And the backstory is they had a child that was born. They never thought they could have kids. They were married for a long time and had a child. So it was super, incredible moment for them. The child was born with lots of health problems. So heart deficiency, had to have a heart transplant, all kinds of stuff. And so she ended up being, 5 hours away from her husband for about a year. And so she banned this. So that became the third, right? So the baby needed her, and she's a healthcare worker. So she knew the attachment with her baby was really important, but she was so focused on baby that she neglected the relationship. And he understood it intellectually, but emotionally couldn't handle it. And he had an affair in that space. So he owned it. He's like, there's no excuse. I should never have done that. I know my own stuff of my neediness and what was happening with my insecurities. But so anyway, she circled back at one point. We'd done some work, and she circled back about 6 months. I'd circled back and was like, I just still am mad. I just feel like you abandoned the relationship. And I just kind of sat there and was like, who abandoned it first? And it was harsh for me to say that. Like I said it, and I felt that my body being like, I'm not blaming you.
I feel that in my body.
Oh, I felt that as I was saying, like, I was like, why am I going to say this? And I said it out loud, and she looked at me, and then she just like dropped, and she was like, holy crap, I never thought about that.
Oh,
right?
You give me goosebumps on my toes.
Right.
I'm honestly tearing up because it's so powerful to take that accountability back, to be like, you're right. I stepped out too. So we're so wired to want to blame somebody else for our miscomings or for our disalignment or, our breach in our trust. Stories. Yeah. We get stuck in the stories and we forget, going back to person first and problem second. Yeah. So the problem, was this massive disconnection, and then these feelings of insecurity, and then attaching to another person to fill myself up so I could feel something good to regulate myself. But the person is like, oh, wow, you were dealing with trauma and you pulled away, and then I pulled away. Like, let's go back to the people here.
Let's go back to the people. It was really happening for the system.
Wow.
It was really painful. My whole heart body felt it. And he looked at me like, oh my God, did you just say that? But it dropped her into her body, and she was like, wow. And it landed her. And it's not the first time I've used that kind of analogy with couples, to be like, if it's a relationship issue, which often it is, if we go back to the bubble or the ship and be like, as we're working through this and assessing what's happening, you're both aware the ship was sinking for a long time, and both of you did nothing about it. Yeah. I'm not excusing your behavior to go gamble or have an affair or do into addictions, whatever your thing you're doing to self-soothe, right? But let's also look at the whole picture here and go, there's an issue back here that you both ignored. And to hold accountability there is massively shifting and massively important to repair the bubble.
Yeah.
It's accountability for each other.
It is.
And to the ship.
Exactly. And by holding each other's hands and being like, instead of keeping score and being like, you did this first and I did this second. And it's a team approach. I'll often use this example with couples where, say maybe like a hockey team, maybe the goalie isn't playing very well. Mm-hmm. They don't at the end of the game blame the goalie and say the goalie was so horrible. Like,
it's all your fault.
Yeah. And if you ask people that, like, what would you, if you were on a team like that, what would happen? They'd be like, well, we want that kid off the team. Like, nobody wants to be around that.
Yeah. The person that's pointing fingers.
Yeah. That blaming. So it's like, instead, hold each other's hand and be like, we're in this together. Yes. Like, this is our relationship, and it sunk a bit, but we're rebuilding it together, and we have a commitment to build it back together. Yeah. Don't keep getting stuck in the stories. And I don't know who says this, but the devil is in the details. Yeah. And so, that's where I think having that important time of, this is how long we talk about that content for, and then we need to put that box.
And I need to feel repaired, and it needs to be authentic. That's all part of the process for sure. But once we've landed there, we let that shark sail. We let that thing that was biting our relationship, let it go, and be like, so now let's work on us. Let's let this. One of my favorite things too with couples that come with an affair that are both in it and feeling the trauma of the relationship breach, and both of them are feeling the stuff, right? And there's a doghouse situation. We'll say, but you're in the doghouse, you got to repair. Like, we do all the stuff, right? But one of the best things I think is that kind of a trauma can build a ship that's so beautiful, and so strong that will weather way more storms than it ever could have if you put the work in after a breach like that, with any rupture. So even little ones, instead of being like, oh, that was terrible, I'll be like, how could that be the best thing that ever happened to our relationship?
Yeah, exactly. And lots of our couples affairs, since we're talking about that right now, they end up being some of our favorite couples that move so true. Whether it's an affair or it's a loss of a loved one or a child or a loss of a job or a bad business move. I don't care what it is, but where there's a loss of trust there, when you actually start to rebuild together, I think of it just automatically. I just think of like rebuilding communities. Like, I know there's lots of fires going on. So, or when people go to different countries and they build schools, like when you rebuild, you create connection that is stronger than even what it was before.
Yeah. When you break a bone, it's stronger in that space that it broke. It's not going to break in that same space again. So what a great analogy, what a great visual. When your neighbor's house burns down or the community and you all come together to rebuild it, there's more intent, there's more community, there's more commitment, there's just more self energy in that building and more
trust.
More trust. Like it feels more alive and precious. And I'm going to work harder to maintain it because I built it. I didn't just kind of build over time space kind of by itself. Unaware of it. We intentionally built this thing, this shit that we're going to be in. That's beautiful. That's probably why they're our favorite couple sometimes, because they come and they're in so much trauma and we do the work and then we actually have them build this thing and they're like, wow, I didn't know it could be this great. I'm like, So I often will say, aren't you lucky? Like, can you look at that thing that happened now fast, in the future and look back and go, rearview mirror, actually, I'm grateful for it, right?
For this. And I want to offer one more thing as you just said that. I'm reminded that a lot of couples will come in and they'll say, like, what if he does it again? Like, what if this happens again? What if you hurt me again? Or her. Sorry. It can go both ways.
And
or they, I mean, it doesn't matter, whatever it is. It's like, what if this happens? What if this happens again? And I love to offer couples just another paradigm of what if it's all okay? What if we grow and we're extraordinary from this? What if we create something even more beautiful than we ever had? Offer up some bigger possibility that is connecting and building that open transparency rather than continuing to go back. Because, in terms of frameworks, when we focus so much on the past, we feel depressed. When we focus too much on the future, we feel anxious. And when we can just be in the here and now, this is where we actually can be settled and be mindful and be in the moment. So just offering up the possibilities.
And the what if is, I'm not sure still what I've built here and if what I built here is safe. But if you're actually in there doing the grind, getting your hands dirty, building back the relationship that you want to build, building a boat that's the healthiest, extraordinary, strong boat you can build, there is no doing it again. Because if you're both in there building it, I know you differently. I see you differently. I'm tuning into you differently. Like we are so much different than we were back then. Or I'm going to see those signs. If I'm building the boat and you see all these things, but you're not showing up, well, then that's also a sign. So actually then you're not in my boat anymore.
No.
So
And I know even you and I will say this often, like if we're just going off of infidelity again, although it could be any breach of trust, that relationship contract is now void. So if it's a marriage, that marriage is over. Okay. That relationship is over. Now we're actually going to build a new relationship. So what are the foundations? And we had a previous episode on agreements. What are the new agreements and foundations of this new bubble, this new ship, this new relationship that we're building? And it gets to be as specific as you need it to be. So if you're the person who was betrayed because your partner had a gambling addiction or was on steroids or doing drugs or whatever it was, I now need an agreement around very thing specific. It could be, I want to be able to look at your phone because you would contact people on there and so that's a triggering thing for me. It's a vulnerability. Whatever it is, you
I want us to look at our bank statements every week and make sure we see what goes in and what goes out, so that there's I didn't pay attention in the past. That's why you were gambling and taking money out, whatever.
And it's a deal breaker. So if you can't do that, then I can't be in this. So it is black and white. It becomes very much, this has to be based on this security. And if we can't do it, then we can't be together. Because if I can't feel safety and security, then I can't build. It's over.
So that's again a really important point they just made. So it has to be based on that. So if it's gambling or addiction or affair, whatever it is, right? And we come to the table and say, we want to work in a relationship. We want to make this a strong, but this person hasn't stopped their behavior. We're not moving the boat forward. There's no building a ship.
There's no building a ship. No, you go and you work on yourself. And if I'm around when you come back, then we can look at building that. But I mean, that's where individual work comes in. When people really have to dive more into my self-trust. What do I stand for? Do I actually follow through with what I say? Am I trustworthy? Do I have credibility? Can people actually believe what comes out of my mouth? Or do I have
believe
none?
It to self first and then to others? Relate to self. If I say I stand for safety and then I'm in a ship that's sinking all the time, I'm not going to feel safe. No parts are going to trust me. My behavior is going to show up in life. I'm going to feel and show anxiety in my life all the time, and probably some depression in my life all the time. Massive. So which is why I don't work with like active addictions in couples therapy. It's counterproductive. So it doesn't mean you can't repair it. Go deal with the addiction. Once that's settled and you have that therapist clear you, come back and we'll do the couples work.
Yeah.
So it's doing the self energy work while that person's doing their stuff, or gambling anonymous, or whatever you're working with. That the behavior has to stop.
It does.
And even, but I'm still in love with it. Well, that's fine. You can have your feelings about the affair. It could be the greatest thing that you ever experienced. You've never had that. We'll talk about that, but it has to end.
Yeah.
Because you got to be all in here. Yeah.
And that's a tough one, because even the definition of addiction, a lot of people will say, I'm not addicted. I've done this for 20 years. This is my baseline, whether it's weed or alcohol or steroids or prescription medicine. It could be anything, right? And it's like, no, but that's changing the person that you are. Your arousal is different. You go from excited to so calm, or you go from this kind of nice person to this angry person. It's like, we really do have to evaluate also on that level. Can we move forward creating a new relationship and new agreements, or do we really have to get a baseline first of where are you at?
Where are you at? Pause. And again, that's the person. Pause and be like, is it a deficit? Is this is it a relationship thing that we can work on? Or is it a person thing that I can't change you, nor do I want to? I need to accept you, who you are. So who are you really? And what are your strengths? What are your deficits? What do you bring to the table? What's your truth? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, building trust back in a relationship is also kind of setting time aside to actually work on this on a weekly basis. Like, how do we keep reevaluating this new ship that we're creating? So we're being accountable to it. I like even actionable things. I know my husband and I, not to build back trust, but just in general, to be like, where's your accountability and where's mine? And then we'll write it down and we reevaluate every week. Like, did we do what we said?
I'm a big fan of accountability and writing things down. So if it's a breach, if we're going to do the financial thing, we're actually going to do it. We're not just going to say we're going to do it. We're going to do it. We're going to sit down and look at our finances. We're going to sit down and look at whatever the thing is, whatever the breach was. We're going to look at your phone. If that's the agreement you made, I need to look at your phone. But and if there's any deleted messages, well, now that's a breach again. For example. So whatever we agree, whatever you guys decided your agreements based on that breach, we're going to do those things. Both people, we're going to do this together. So we build back the ship together. We're both in it.
And write down those new agreements and sign it. Sign it. And I think it's it's important. It's like, no, my word is gold. My signature is gold. And if I can't stand for that, then I can't trust myself. So again, I need to go and do my own work. I'm not ready to work on this relationship. And that's okay if that's where you're at, but be honest about that.
And part of that accountability starting to build the layers of trust. Because if you're just sitting there going, we discussed these things, we didn't do any of these things. So now I'm sitting there like, I think we're working on this, but are we working on this? We didn't actually do anything. There's no action here. So, but having the weekly meetings, like an accountability meeting, I'm starting to feel settled, be like, oh, we're doing this. You're different. We're showing up different for this relationship. I'm starting to feel that movement, that flow of trust that's building back. We got to build the ship again. Not just like, oh, let's shake on it. We're good now. Let's build the ship board by board again. So that's a massive piece of like showing up, doing the work. It's action.
It is. It's action. And another piece that you can do building trust back is showing appreciation and gratitude. Like acknowledging that on a daily basis, that builds trust. It's like, oh, you're seeing me, you're understanding me, you're getting me. That feels good because you're showing me this different version of yourself that maybe I didn't see before. And it's making me feel closer to you.
And I appreciate this is probably a pain in the butt for you, but I appreciate you making space for my vulnerabilities, making space for my paranoia, maybe. Maybe I need to feel paranoid for a little while. So I need to check on things or text me 5 times today or whatever, making space. Like, I appreciate that you're making space. I need to process my feelings, to process my own trauma. And I'm processing it with you. How beautiful.
That is really good.
I put here too, like the idea of like guilt versus shame, the person that's caused the damage. We both cause the damage to the relationship. So let's own that we both cause, we're both accountable to the relationship. If that's what we're looking at here. But we're not like, we're bad. Guilt is, again, moves us. Guilt is what? Guilt is to like change action. Right? Guilt is like, oh, that doesn't feel good. It's call to action. What guilt is. Or shame is, I'm stuck now. I am just bad. So now I'm stuck back here. So if you're stuck in a shame spiral, like, I'm so bad that I caused that thing, you need to go get help for that. You need to speak to somebody. You need to share that with somebody else, because shame's not going to serve you.
No.
Guilt, great, because guilt doesn't last long if you're taking action. I feel bad.
If you learn the lesson from guilt and you're like, okay, I'm going to change this. This doesn't feel good. I don't align with this. So now it's an actionable thing. I'm going to start to do this differently. Whereas shame will spiral you. And it's not good in a relationship either, because the other person can say all they want. Like, you're not bad and you're not this or that, but they're like, it doesn't matter. It's actually how I feel about myself. It's not how you feel about me.
Which is if I am bad, what's my behavior? My action's going to keep coming out of my true sense of self.
Yes.
So that's a whole other part, but it's an important part distinction to make. If your partner or you are in shame, reach out.
Yeah.
Reach out. Read Brene Brown's research on shame. It's brilliant.
It is really good. Another one I have too is just boundaries with thirds that kind of interfere in this process of building trust back. So, whether that's certain people that, were influencing something that was part of the breach of trust. If it is a substance, that we need some really clear agreements on how to build this trust back by not drinking or going to meetings or not talking to our family or our friends, whatever that looks like.
So then you're saying it's a mutually agreed upon breach. It's not that I said it's a breach and you're just like going along with me.
Yeah.
We both agree. It's a mutually agreed upon. We both agree that this was a breach. Yeah. For our bubble. Yeah. We both agree. Okay, good. So what are we going to do to make amends, to build that ship differently going forward? So if it was an addiction thing, what are we going to do? It has to be mutually agreed upon.
Yeah. What I like to, when you just said that, I just kind of got this vision because I always say to people, you need to know where you're moving towards. Like, what is the vision of who you want to become as a couple?
Yeah.
And sometimes when people can't figure that out, I'll say, instead, I want you to just close your eyes for a minute and visualize 5 years from now, nothing has changed.
Oh,
so you're still the same person. You're still doing the same behaviors. You're still tolerating the same disrespect. You're still living that life. What does that feel like? Because sometimes people will move when they get to that place, right?
Yeah, makes me get antsy.
Yeah. It's like, so you need to visualize, you need to know where you're moving towards. And that needs to be a co-created vision of what are we doing? What is our vision in this relationship? What are we creating?
Yeah, I love that. Looking forward, like if you're doing the same things, how's it going to feel? Set the fire under your butt. Like, okay, I hear you loud and clear. Thanks, Dana. Yeah. Okay, let's start today because I don't want to be doing this again.
I don't want to.
Where are we going?
Yeah.
And it helps you shed and release those sharks, those things. Helps you shed and be like, okay, this helped us. This is a shark that landed here, but let's not focus on that forever. Let's move to health and transparency, whatever those agreements are. Let's move towards safety and security.
Yeah.
What does that look like? And me bringing sharks in isn't going to be safe and secure.
No. Another one that I have that's really big too is just, and it's the last one I have on my list, is being emotionally available. So building trust back is actually being emotionally present and open, because if we're shut off or we're disconnected, we're going to have moments where we're like that, but just when we're in the presence of our partner, their brain will scan for threat again. They'll be like, oh, she's doing that same thing again. When she's looking at her phone, that's when she did that thing. She made that choice. And so, it's like, we have to understand our partner really well. When they come in the room, whether it's the phone, you're like, oh, look, I'm looking at my phone. I was looking on Facebook. Look at what's going on Facebook. It's like, quickly, I'm going to notice that about you because I'm emotionally available and present.
Yeah. And taking the space to not rush out, like you said earlier. I'm not going to rush and like, are you still seriously triggered by my phone? Like, get over it when I'm all back in my triggered again. Rather than be like, I'm offering you the grace and the space for as long as it needs for your nervous system to actually heal here. Yeah, that's massive. That was my last one too, is like the slowness to recover. That's everyone's individual.
I know.
And offering the space and the grace to be like, okay, there was a breach and we both breached it, but I ruptured it differently than you did. You picked the kid, I picked the affair, whatever it was, right? But I'm going to know your cues. I'm going to know your triggers. I'm going to know the things that we said in our last one, know the things that are going to set you on fire. And I'm going to pay attention to those. And I'm going to do my best to like attend quickly. That was a great example of like, hey, I'm on my phone looking at Facebook. Look at what the kids are doing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Or I'm not going to catch myself in guilt line because that's going to be worse. I'm going to pause and go, I have nothing to hide.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Here's the thing that we agreed to. And I show you that's a really good one.
Yeah.
So these are some really good generals around, when there's been a breach of trust, of how to build that trust in a relationship. I mean, we start off, dating and building trust with the actions that we're taking in the first place, asking questions, being accountable, being transparent, having agreements, following through. Those are all building foundation at the beginning. And then when there's a breach, kind of we said, okay, well, that contract that you had is null and void. Let's create a new one.
Yeah.
Do you want to create a new one? What is it going to take to create a new one?
Yeah.
Who's the person they're with? Can they actually capacity to create the new one with you the way you want it to be created?
Yeah.
All those questions. And then if that's all yes, then we agree to do those things. And we then create for our ship again, what is it going to take for our specific ship to create a new foundation?
Exactly. And a good kind of take home would be, just as an evaluation, kind of how would you rate your own self-trust first?
Yes.
I love scales, like scale, 0 to 10 or 0 to 100. How do I rate how well I am at standing in my own self-trust.
Yeah.
And my
like
own
setting up for myself,
accountability.
having good boundaries, doing what I say I'm going to do, living by my values, living by my principles.
Self-talk.
Self-talk. Oh, that's a hard one. Yes.
Yeah.
Big one. Good.
Yeah. Some self-confidence there.
Yeah.
And then, how much do I trust my partner?
Yeah.
And maybe you are going to divide it up like a lot of our couples do, but that's okay. Divide it up. Where are the ones that are really low? Those are really good kind of points to be able to go to your partner and be like, oh, I'm high on everything else except this one thing with you. Is there any negotiating around this or talking about it? And if they're like, no, I'm really black and white, sorry.
Yeah.
And okay, I guess I got to deal with that. Or that's a deal breaker. But, and then, how would I rate kind of my self-trust with my trust with my best friend, with my religious kind of community, with my parents, with my government, with
my
media,
doctor, with media, with my pastor, maybe. Yeah. And then when you look at those things, go, oh, do I need to find a different person? Do I need to negotiate that with that person? Hey, we had this agreement, and right. Maybe you had a doctor and they did their best. And then, my friend Chantal, the surgery didn't go so great, to go back and go, now I don't, or you know what? Can we talk about that? Like, I feel like we had an agreement about how the surgery is going to go, and I get stuff happens sometimes, but can we negotiate and talk about how to rebuild trust? Because you're my doctor.
Yeah. That would be a really mature conversation to have.
Mature. Yeah. And if the doctor can't handle that and is like, nope, or depends on how they react, don't need to find a new doctor.
Yeah. And I know even as therapists, like I've had handfuls of people over the years who have said, I feel like you said something, Dana, that I don't know if they'll say breached my trust, but I didn't like the way that you said that, and so now I'm kind of backing up a little bit. And then, I do the work also of I'm going to see into you and validate that and see if we can build that back. And if we can't, I'm going to help you find somebody else. Yeah. Because trust is the essence of a therapeutic relationship.
It is,
right?
Every relationship.
Yes.
Every relationship. With my kid the other day, I don't know what I was saying. I think I was saying something to you in Kukanusa, and I thought I was pumping her tires. And after she's like, Mom, that was a breach. Why would you tell that to Dana? And I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. I had no idea that. I actually trying to probably with about her art or something I'm sure it was about something that's vulnerable to her. I can't remember what it was now, but I paused and was like, I honestly had no idea that was a breach. I'm so sorry. If I knew that, I would never have said that. I don't want to be I'm so sorry that caused you a disruption. Yeah. And I'll make sure to whatever that is. I should probably remember what it is now. Yes. But I'll make sure, I'm just going to be really mindful. I'm talking about her in front of her, to look at her face and make sure, is this okay to talk about, or ask her permission? Yeah. I want to discuss your artwork. I think it's so great. Can I tell her? And if she says no, I'm like, okay.
Yeah. Okay. That's fine. Totally good. Yeah. No.
I want to brag about it. I think it's so great, but sometimes for her, that's a breach. Yeah. I pause and go, okay, it's not about what I think. It's about our relationship. And if for you, that's a breach. Yeah. I honor that. Yes. I might think it's ridiculous. Yeah. But I'm going to honor that.
But what's good for you is good for me, is good for our relationship. And so this is why, trust is an important one that you're always building, and it just takes a moment to destroy it. And when it's destroyed, it affects every relationship with yourself and with others for a long time. And this is, we talked about this in a past episode of, trauma is,
it's in the body, and it's a breach of connection.
That's what it is.
Yeah,
I was going to say chronic disconnection. I lost my train of thought.
And so we say long time. Let's say long enough. You're going to feel it in your relationships long enough until you do the work. Yeah. Until you lean back and go, what happened? How did it happen? Where did I, misalign with myself? How did I not notice your stuff? Until you do the work, and then you start to build back those. If you just keep ruminating about the negativity, you're going to stay there forever.
Exactly. And this is ultimately what a therapist is for when people come in and they're like, I haven't felt connected to anybody for a long time, even myself. I want to build trust with you so you can help me find myself again. I know I'm in there, but I haven't done this for so long. And then you become kind of that proxy of you're going to allow me to feel and move through all of these different experiences and relationships. So I can come to the surface and start to build my own ship.
We're going to dig out what are all the layers and blocks that are causing you to be so misaligned. Mm-hmm. And we're going to also dig out, what do you stand for? What's valuable? And we're going to push them to action, call them to action. So if you stand for that, do that. Yeah. Do those things that you actually stand for. So building confidence and building esteem again. Yeah. So massive topic.
So good.
Okay, trust. It's a big one. It's an important one. And there's so many ways to breach, like you said. And it's when a bomb goes off, to have space and grace and compassion that it's real and we feel it in our bodies. Yeah. And then, but also the mindset of we can build it back.
We can. Right? But it's going to take time. And don't put a time frame on it of Well, because a lot of times people say that, well, I'm willing to do this for 6 months. Yeah. How long is this going to take?
I feel better.
Yeah. Well,
it depends.
Yeah.
It depends on
years.
all the factors.
Yeah.
Depends on how much work you're putting in, how much you're trusting the work that you're putting in, how committed you are to the process. Like it depends on all your past stuff. Like if it was just one breach in 20 years, this is the first breach in year 1. So many factors.
And how reliable you are to your word. If you say this and you keep doing this for months and months and years, it's going to be just great. But if 1 minute you say this and then 25 minutes later or 2 weeks later, you're doing something different. Yeah, you're actually starting 10 steps back again. Every time you're starting further back. So make sure that you start to build your own self-trust first to go, do I believe I can do this? And if I can't, set the person free. I actually can't do this.
I can't do this.
I don't have capacity.
Yeah. And that's really okay.
It is okay. It's hard, but it's okay.
It's okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Trust, friends.
Let's keep building it.
Let's do it.
Thanks so much for joining us.
We're really glad you're here with us on this journey.
The best way to support this podcast is to subscribe and give it a 5-star review.
See you next time.
This has been a Bread Dog Studios production.